And welcome into the Dan Presel Show here on the SHC Athletics YouTube channel. Charlie Harrison, head coach of the Badgers, Dan Presel, and our international student spotlight today. We've got senior guard Claudia Garrido here with us. Claudia, we wanted to start with you today, kind of putting a highlight on some of our international students. I know you're on a team made up of a bunch of Mobile natives. We got some kids from some other parts of the states, but you and Marta Duda really kind of holding down that international duty.
Yes, with my team, we just feel welcome with our all our American teammates, and they just been really understandable. And when we don't know something, they're just trying to explain it to us. And then we have Rita too, that we just been holding to each other when we don't know something. We're just kind of looking at each other and being like, "Did you understand it? Because I did not understand anything." And sometimes we just have like to over-explain it, and
Now, how common is that a thing where it's like something will come up and then it's like, huh? Like, oh, it's an American thing.
yeah, you can even ask him. Most of the practices, sometimes they will be talking, and I will put like face like this, like I don't understand a single word, and he would just look at me and have to explain it like for 10 more minutes because we don't understand it, and he just have to over-explain it.
Yeah, like a lot of like just common phrases, kind of fly over their head that we all grew up with.
The curse of the American idiom.
Oh yeah, no, it's different. I'm sure. Hey, I always give her a hard time, or not a hard time. Her English is a whole lot better than my Spanish.
You know, it's probably a whole lot better than my Spanish, too. I've been trying to get better with my languages in the new year. I've been doing my Duolingo every day, but I took 3 language classes in college, and my wife will hold up something and she'll be like, "This is in Russian. Can you tell me what they're saying?" No, I can't.
Yeah, sometimes I just try to teach my teammates, and when they have classes in Spanish, I try to tutor them in a sense and help them. And I try to help all my other friends as well, men's basketball, women's basketball. And they just always come to me and ask me, like, how do you say this in Spanish? And they just, one day, they just random pop out and say the phrase that they just told me. So, like, it's kind of like glad that, like, they trying to learn and they're asking me. But at the same time, Spanish is an easy language to learn. But if you try to speak Polish like Marta or Hungarian like Rita, sometimes they're speaking and I think it's Chinese, but it's just Hungarian.
All of those vowel sounds really start to run together, and then it's just a lot of consonants in the Polish and the Hungarian.
Yes, because in English and Spanish, we kind of have like the same words. We just pronounce them differently, like the vowels, the consonants, like everything is just different. But most of the times they're the same words, so it's easier for me to pick up. But when Marta and Rita they just started speaking,
It's just, okay, over my head, we're done now.
exactly.
So I wanted to ask, you're from Barcelona, of course. Looking back through your history, you come from a coach's family and everything, but how did you get into playing basketball over in Spain?
Honestly, when I was 7, I was going to go into swimming competition, and then I just saw a flyer on a club team, and I would look at my mom and my dad, and I was like, "Hey, I want to try to play basketball." And they look at each other because my dad played professional basketball and my mom too, but they didn't want to put us a basketball in our hands since we were babies. They want us to find our own sport. So as soon as I showed them the flyer, they look at each other and they were like, "She found it. Like we didn't do anything." And I was the only girl playing basketball at that time. It was a team, all of the guys and me. And then I just went to another club team and then just built up from there.
So you started playing men's ball, and that kind of feeds into my next question. Like, I know here in the States we have AAU basketball and everything, but like high school ball is a big thing. You play for your middle school team, you play for your high school team. Is it that way in Spain, or is it more of like a club ball focus?
It's more as a club team because we don't have, for example, I feel like here in America, they organize more stuff and they like try to organize your schedule with your basketball. For example, in Spain, I could have class from 8 a.m. until 2 p.m. and then I will have practice at 7 p.m. But I was 1 hour away from where I was playing because I went to one of like the best teams in Spain of my year. So I had to travel 1 hour to practice with them, and then I will have to play to practice with the pro team, and then I will have to come home at 12 a.m. and then I will have to start my day all over again. So I feel like in a sense, in America, it's way more organized because they like taking care of like your time. But in Spain, you have to make time to play of what you like and put effort when you need.
School is school, and then basketball is basketball. That makes sense. So talking about then how you ended up coming to the U.S. I mean, you come over, you start playing at Division Two UT Tyler. How exactly did you end up being recruited, and what brought you to the states?
Basically, my whole team, it was like in my year in Spain, it was like kind of like a boom of American basketball.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody started talking with coaches. All my teammates started talking with coaches of the United States. And I always wanted to come to the States since I was 14 because my sister was trying to be recruited when she was 16 to come to the States. But her thing was Spain and she didn't want to leave. And she was just playing basketball to hang out with her friends. But then when I was in Spain, I kind of realized that like basketball is something that like can give me an opportunity and that I can grow out of it. So I decided to like talk with my coaches from Spain. They tried to contact coaches here, and then the recruiting process, it was kind of like overwhelmed because all
Yeah.
my teammates, they were with Division 1. They already close with Division 1. They were already close with Division 2, JUCO. And then I just found UT Tyler, that it was just an experience, and I took my freshman year and I grew a lot out of it, and I learned how to play in American way basketball,
Yeah.
how to focus it and everything.
Now, what was the hardest part? You mentioned learning to play like American basketball. What was the hardest adjustment for you?
First off, most of the times coaches have like one player in the States. When I first came here, it's not like in Spain, in Europe in general, we move more the ball. We move without the ball. As soon as I was one of the players that as soon as my post player grabbed the rebound, I was already in the other side of the court waiting for her baseball pass, and then I will finish in transition. I feel like here, like on my freshman year, we had that one player that she needed to have the ball 20 seconds out of 30 possession out of the 30-second possession and play out from there. And then on defense, we were playing more defense when in Spain, I was trying to defend one of the best player of the other team. And I guess it's just the culture most of like the most important thing. Like the culture changed about how to pass the ball, how to move, how to defend. And it was kind of like a shock for me when I was, because I came to the States when I was 18.
Yeah.
And then it was kind of like a shock of reality of like, okay, I'm here alone. I need to learn a new language because I don't speak it well.
Oh
And
man.
then try to learn how to play new basketball and try to go to through classes too. So it was kind of like a bomb in like right at the beginning, but I just had to manage myself to learn everything at the same time. I try like to adjust myself and everything.
Yeah, I mean, there's not enough credit for that. You mentioned you're 18. You're basically having to speak a new language. You've not lived in anywhere where like English was the first language kind of perspective. And then you're out on your own. I mean, that's such an adjustment. And talk about like keeping your time straight. You're trying to learn basketball and play basketball, but you've got all of these classes, which are a step up too. So that has to be a hard time.
Yeah, well, and my first semester in UT Tyler, I had a professor on my math class that she was Mexican.
Okay.
So she was helping me a lot. Sometimes when I didn't understand a word or something, she would just come to me and ask me like, "Hey, did you understand it?" And I would be like, "Yes." And my coach in UT Tyler, she was Mexican. So sometimes when they will be talking, I would just don't understand her. Plus, I had one teammate that she was from the north of Spain, and she was a junior. So it was kind of like I had a backup. If I didn't know stuff, I would just go next to her and be like, "What did they say?" And she would just explain it to me. And if she didn't know either, I would just go to the coaches.
Well, that's awesome. You had a good support system when you got started. Now, you started at UT Tyler, then you go to JUCO Jasper. How did you end up coming here to Spring Hill?
Honestly, after my JUCO year, I was just trying to go somewhere that I will feel comfortable with. And as soon as I started talking with Coach P, Coach Presel, uh, I just felt comfortable talking with him. I just felt like we had the same kind of vision of basketball and the understanding for the game. I was not feeling nervous. It was my first and only phone call that I had that I was not nervous talking through the phone. So as soon as like I had that phone call, I knew this is going to be my place because I was not trying to be nervous. I was just being myself. And then it brought me here. And today is how I am. And I'm really glad that I made this decision. It was earlier, but at the same time, he was not here, so it will not be the same. But I just feel glad that he contacted me and I got to play here.
And, we mentioned it a little bit earlier. You're a senior, of course, so life comes at you fast. The next step is kind of on the way now. Are you planning to stay here in the US? Are you thinking of going back to Spain? Like, what do you want to do after you're done with school?
I was planning to do my master's around Europe because I
Okay.
feel like my time in the States kind of like ended. Like it's feel like a phase. When I came here, my goal was to have 4 years and then go to either Spain or some part of Europe. And I'm just trying, as soon as it reaches at the end of January, I will just try to start looking for teams. And if I find a team in Spain, it will be really good. But if I find a team around Europe, I will just feel blessed and grateful because I will have the opportunity to keep studying abroad and keep playing basketball, have the opportunity to maybe even play in a pro team in another league. Because when in my senior year of high school, I was playing with a pro team of my club. So I kind of know some of the experience of playing pro in Spain, but not fully because I didn't have the IQ understanding for basketball that I have by this day. I just see my whole game. I feel like it's way different than when I was a senior in high school. And I feel like maybe playing in another country will like beneficial me and my major and get my masters and be able to develop more and like be more independent.
So, what are you wanting to get your master's in?
So my major is computer science.
Okay, nice.
So I'm trying to get my majors in data science or computer science based on websites, on like this might sound kind of nerd, but I like video games, how they're built, know how to build them. Because in class sometimes we'll really like one of my classmates he created a video game and like I
Yeah.
was obsessed and I asked him for the code and everything. So
Look, you're already out shooting me. Like, I cannot, for the life of me, figure out computers. So, I'm an iPad kid. It's nice, it's simple. So, impressed with that. Well, Claudia, thanks so much for your time.
thank you for having me here.
Of course, we'll be back in just a second. We'll recap what's been going on in Badger women's basketball when we come back.
This is the way down a path that leads to a place upon the hill, led by thought leaders, activists, and Jesuit princes. Among the hill is where tradition and a strong desire to do and achieve reside. Ingrained in rich tradition, filled with purpose, fueled by passion. Spring Hill College is for those who seek more.
Welcome back to the Dan Presel Show. Thanks so much for our international student, Claudia Garrido, for joining us. And, Coach, time now to look back to what's been going on the past couple of weeks. Played Clark, Atlanta, and Lemoyne since the last time we talked. What are your takeaways and impressions from those games?
Well, obviously disappointed with both results. Struggled, especially offensively, both games. Just putting the ball in the basket, and we for a lot of the year we've been in a good rhythm. These last couple of weeks, it's been tough sledding. So we're in the process of trying to figure that out and try to get back on the right track.
Coach, I wanted to ask kind of about injuries. How hard is it to get your footing now that we're flipping the year and really getting into conference play when you were missing Claudia, who's one of the biggest influences on defense. You missed Kellen last game, one of the biggest impact players on offense. How much is injuries affecting the way this team is gelling?
I mean, it's a part of it's the worst part of sports, right?
Right.
All these student athletes, they work so hard. You don't want to have time missed because of that. But at the same time, it is a part of it, and every team in America goes through it
Yeah.
at some point, and some got it a lot worse than we've had it. So we have a roster full of players that work really hard and are really good. When someone goes down, it's somebody else's time to kind of step into a role and perform. So you don't want to play without your best players, but at the same time, we got enough good players to make up for it.
Now, I want to look at this question a little bit of a different way. Let's say you were a high school basketball coach or an AAU coach, and you were kind of on the same stretch you were on right now. Headed into practice, what drills or whatever would you implement to kind of get that confidence going again and the offense surging?
Yeah, that's the real hard part, because I think we have lost a little confidence, at least from a shooting, perspective, and just in general, and it's hard to get it back. I don't think it's not a time to panic when that's the case. Life is full of up and downs, and we all go through slumps. Every one of us through our weeks and days and lives. So my thing with us, the message has been, listen, we've seen good basketball, we've played good basketball, so it's in us.
Yeah,
we just have to figure out how to collectively get back there, and playing timidly or playing not to lose, those are not solutions out. We have to continue to be aggressive and continue to try to support each other, and to kind of get back to how we were playing, even a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. And then when you talk about that, like what stands out to me, it's getting back to the flow, right? You've not hit the numbers offensively in the past 4 games that we saw in the 10 games prior. And I noticed it a little bit against Lemoyne. There seemed almost a hesitation to shoot at times. There's a great team mentality. Everybody's clearly looking for that next pass. But how do you make that distinction between it's time to make the pass or it's time to make the shot?
Yeah, and that's, again, that's the trick in basketball. Basketball is a 5-person social contract, right? And the ball has to move, and the open player needs to get it. But at some point, somebody does have to score.
Right, somebody's got to throw up a shot somewhere.
Somebody's got to do it. So, those are all things that, that's why we practice so much and so hard. And those are things that need to get sorted out during practice. And games are not really for, you have to process what's happening, but it's not for thinking too much about it. It's more about, letting the practice work show up.
Now, Coach, turnovers have been a little bit of a problem, especially the past couple of games. How do you look around and say, okay, we're not shooting the way we want to, and we're turning the ball over a little bit more than we want to? What's the first thing that's got to be fixed in that regard?
That's a bad combination right there, Charlie.
It's one that can undermine you a little bit.
Yeah, and so I think really turnovers are a lot more controllable than make or miss shots, especially, you're talking about threes and shots on the move, and so you have to consistently play as a low turnover team. And
right.
So our magic number and generally is about 18% of our possessions we want. That's an acceptable amount of turnovers. Not that any turnover is,
acceptable, but
wanted,
if you're turning it over at that rate, you're okay.
That's a decent rate, and we've been at about 19 and a half this last few. So we're talking about a play here or there.
Right.
And generally that's what you're trying to, as the season goes on, you're trying to figure out as a coach, as a player, as a team, you're looking for a couple more plays on both sides of the ball. The best way offensively is don't turn it over.
Mention those turnover numbers and the struggles offensively. It seems like it's kind of starting in the first quarter, right? It's been a couple of slow starts here and there. Second quarter, things start to pick up, third, fourth, but how do you get going earlier in a game?
Yeah, and we haven't been a great first quarter scoring team this year. We kind of got it fixed early, and then we've kind of slid back. It's you want to start off on the right foot the first few possessions. In the last couple games, I think it's been hard for us, and that definitely does not help your confidence moving forward. We're figuring it out, Charlie. If I knew, we wouldn't be doing it right now,
Right.
And it's also, again, you go back, it's such a long season. There's so many ups and downs. It's not a time to panic or be overly concerned. However, we do need to figure it out.
Well, we'll talk about figuring out a little bit more when we come back. Segment 2, a preview of the upcoming matchups with Kentucky State and Central State on the way. You're watching the Dan Presel Show here on the SHC Athletics YouTube channel.
Producer Mac here telling you to tune in to the Craig Kennedy Show every Wednesday on the SHC Athletics YouTube channel. Tune in each week to hear about the latest in Badger hoops and to preview the upcoming games, a former player spotlight, and to hear about the current players on the court themselves. All that and more on the Craig Kennedy Show every Wednesday in basketball season, all here on the SHC Athletics YouTube channel.
Welcome back to the Dan Presel Show here on the SHC Athletics YouTube channel. Charlie Harrison, head coach of the Badgers, Dan Presel. And Coach, 2 big games coming up Saturday and Monday, Kentucky State, Central State. What do you guys got to do to get back on track?
We got to play well. We got to control what we can control, and that's really no matter who you're playing, And so we got to find a little better rhythm, find a little more confidence on the offensive side, and keep building on the good defense that we've been playing, and try to put 40 good minutes together.
Coach, we've not talked about Kentucky State a lot. What kind of stood out to me about them, they've struggled on the defensive end of the floor a lot. How much does that kind of play into your head? Okay, we know what we're struggling with. The team that we got coming in is weak against that. So.
Yeah, I do know this. Every game has its own life, Charlie. You can play the best defensive team, and if you're making shots that day and it's going well, you can overcome that. You can play some of the worst defensive teams, and they can you can give them they can end up looking having a day because you're struggling. So you try not to think about that at all. It's about how are they going to defend us and how are we going to attack it. How are they going to try to score and how are we going to take it away?
It's funny you mentioned that because it always seems like it's a player you least expect, right? Somebody who's just going to pop out of the woodwork
Right.
with 20 on a day where they've been averaging 0.3 a game the past month.
Yeah. It seems like that happens to us a lot more than it's happening to other teams when they play us. But, I tell our kids, man, we're all college basketball players.
Right.
Everybody out there is in a small percentage of kids in America or all over the world. So right off the bat, just because a guy's not making shots or not getting attempts, it doesn't mean they can't make them. They're college basketball players for a reason. And everybody out there that puts a uniform on can play.
It's one of those things you hear a lot about it, like, oh, we're starting to see more of these D2 and NAIA transfers come to the Division I level. And, it's the elitism of sports sometimes. You think, oh, well, I'm a Division I player. This guy's a Division II. I can handle him. But there's good ball at every level, and it's going to shine every night.
Oh, there's no doubt. A lot of the times, the level is your measurables in a sense, and you see some more on the men's side with Division II guys, having success. It hasn't happened as much on our side, but it's catching up. But I've been a part of, it's a story I always tell when I was at North Alabama. We're D2. We beat the University of Alabama in an exhibition game at the buzzer. The coaches at Alabama were not trading one of their kids for one of ours, but we have better basketball players up and down the roster. And that day we were able to overcome it. So, good basketball players come in all shapes and sizes. Your measurables usually determine your level.
It's the old Bear Bryant quote, right? I can take mine and beat yours. I can take yours and beat mine. It's if you can coach them, if they're good kids, they'll find a way.
Yeah, well, that's Bear Bryant too. It's one of one. He can do that. The rest of us coaches, it's hard for us to live like that.
Oh man, you're putting together some pretty good teams now. It's been fun to watch. It's been good basketball for most of the season now. Talk about Kentucky State, Central State coming in as well. What do you kind of expect to see out of them?
Yeah, well, Central State, new coach. She's coming over from Norfolk State, which has been very successful at Division I, mid-major, low major. So she's brought a lot of that winning mentality. Very talented, very deep. Probably as big a team in Division II as you're going to see. They got Division I size. All over the place. So they've been winning and have been on a roll here. So they're going to be a different challenge than Kentucky State, who is a little more athletic, a little more pressing team. Central State's going to come in here and be kind of an opposite and be really big, really try to make it a half-court game and just out-physical you.
Now, we saw it against Clark Atlanta. They were a little bit bigger. They were a little bit more physical.
Right.
When you take that and apply it to the Central State, team. What specifically do you need to see out of the post players to take better control of a game?
Yeah, and it's different because Central State's big is back to the basket big. uh, Clark Atlanta, they're very athletic,
Yeah.
not only with length and size, but more face up and kind of make you defend them from 20 feet and in, 15 feet and in. Where Central State's really just going to try to attack the rim with their size. So it is different, and it's just as hard. But we have to attack it a little differently.
So what without giving away the game plan, what does that adjustment kind of look like for you? Are we going to see maybe Marta playing a little bit more in or more of Ariel Thompson?
Yeah, I think all of the above.
Okay.
Again, we'll figure out when we get there what our best we think are going to give us the best chance.
Now, Coach, you mentioned the other day in post-game coverage, Kellen Hunter's kind of in a day-to-day role. If she's not back available for that Kentucky State game, who's going to be the player we can watch to step up and kind of fill her role?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's a little bit of everybody. It's hard when you're primary ball handler. People have to slide. So Jaleisha Mann did a pretty good job against Lemoyne. Nicole Blanche will have more opportunities. Having Claudia back gives us another secondary kind of ball handler. So it's just gonna take more than one person kind of filling that void.
Mann what was really interesting about her game to me against Lemoyne Owen. She seemed very conscious of where her defenders' hands were, which you don't always think about until your running point when somebody's coming up and checking you and trying to reach over and poke it loose. How do you coach that?
Awareness is everything, because not only do you have to be aware of the guy defending you, you also, when you have the ball in your hand, you have to be aware of where the other 8 people are. You're 4 and they're 4, and getting the ball to where it needs to go to start whatever action you're in. So it's not just the awareness of on the ball. It's off. When you're a really good ball handler and are really comfortable with the ball, it's not even about the guy guarding you anymore. It becomes more about the other people, because you're so comfortable with the ball. She's again grown so much. In the 2 years that been able to coach her, and this year it's been fun. She's had some real nice moments where she's really making, so I call them senior plays. It's the plays you don't really make until you're a senior, and most kids have do that. And get to that point. So, she's very enjoyable to coach. She's just a hardworking, great kid.
We see it out of her and we see it out of Kellen when she's running the offense and kind of distributing. How do you make that distinction of, okay, I've got the ball in my hand and now I can either make the play, I can dash and take it myself, or I can find that pass? Is it just a situational thing? And how do you kind of coach the girls to recognize that?
Well, yeah, it is. I think for us, we want to move the ball, move people. Again, I really believe in, a great possession is when all 5 get to touch it.
Right.
But at the same time, and Kellen still being a young player as a sophomore, even though she's getting to the end of it and seeing so much early. For when you're really good, like when you have the ability to score, you have to be able to insert yourself at times.
Yeah.
And the really good players like her have access to shots that most of us never did. So there is kind of that fine line between, trying to get the ball moving, trying to get everybody involved, and when you have an opportunity taking it. And that's a lot of the art of basketball.
It's the difference between a good and a great point guard, right? I mean, what makes Magic Johnson so dynamic?
Yeah, well, yeah, and it is, and the great thing I think about basketball, as much as any sport, is just the freedom, the level of room for creativity, the gray area in the game, and with that gray area comes a lot of options and a lot of decisions, and it's hard. It can make the game hard,
Coach, I want to ask, so if you were sitting down talking to a high school recruit, talking specifically about that gray area, what would you tell them you're looking for, and what should they be watching so they can improve that element of their game?
I think this. I think I would tell any high school player, like, try to make, if you're trying to make everyone around you better,
Mhm.
you will automatically be a better version of yourself. And I think, and especially for the high school kids, really talented kids, the playing with others and sharing the ball and being a part of that 5-player social contract kind of gets that part of their growth gets really stunted because they're very good and they're good
Right.
with the ball. So my advice to those kind of high school kids is, and about the gray area, is if you make it about everyone else, you'll figure yourself out. And I think that's where the game becomes enjoyable, a lot more so.
Coach, our final question for the day, put this one to Coach Kennedy as well. You're going to get an opportunity to sit down with every official in the country, 5 minutes to tell them what you want them to know from you as a coach. What are you going to say to those officials?
So about referees?
Referees.
Oh, man. Listen, here's the only thing I would ever tell a ref is just call what you see, and you can't be wrong.
There you go.
And the better the ref, the more you see.
There you go. All right, Coach. Well, we'll take that. That'll be it for this week. Of course, Kentucky State coming to the gym this weekend. Central State on Monday, 2:30 and 5:30, if I'm not mistaken. Right,
2
Coach?
o'clock Saturday.
2
Kentucky
o'clock.
State tip, and then 5:30 Monday. Yep.
So make sure you come on out to the Outlaw and check it out. Or if you can't, we'll have the games on the SIAC network. This has been it for the Dan Presel Show. Coach, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Charlie.
We'll be back with you next Wednesday. Make sure you tune in.